Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Annie, this is Stanley, and we're here to talk about books. So today's video is going to be reviews of all the books that I read in December, which wasn't actually very many. I'm sure people will be delighted to hear that they're not going to have to sit here for like an hour listening to me waffle on about all the books I read. I had a bit of a relaxed reading month, which seems weird and impossible and not in keeping with the rest of the year, but it was nice to be a bit more relaxed about my reading. So let's get to it. But before we get to the reviews, let's make some tea. So here we are again at the tea drawers. What do the dice have in store? 9 and 11 is 20. One of the drawers is empty. Oh no! So there'll be 11. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So last drawer in the chest, which is the Jasmine Pearls. That's good because they've been hanging around for a while because I never think to have them. I don't need very many because they do expand. So that'll definitely do. Good old Past Me has, as ever, boiled the kettle. Jasmine Pearls. Excellent. So now that we've got some tea, which is always an important accompaniment to reading in my view, let's get to the reviews. So I did a reindeer readathon, which was hosted by Dan from Break Even Books, and that was to fulfill various prompts across the month. Not all of them will be in this video because some of them were the books that I read for Read It or Yeet It, or possibly for Reviews Revisited, but I will list the prompts that I fulfilled with the ones that I did read. First of all, I read the graphic novel version of The Importance of Being Earnest, which was quite fun. I do know the play quite well. I've been in it, and I've also seen it on stage a few times. And yeah, one of my favourite plays, really good humour in it, which was good because for my final magical readathon prompt of the year on the map of Eldia, I had to read a book with humour in it, so this definitely fulfilled that. And also fulfilled the reindeer prompt of a title with more than 7 syllables, so that was quite handy. I don't know that it necessarily worked amazingly well as a graphic novel. It was quite nice to see the characters and see the story kind of play out in visuals as you would when you see it on stage. But it was a bit text heavy for a graphic novel, I think. I did enjoy it, but there were a lot of very text heavy frames because it had probably not all the text of the novel, the play. I think it was maybe edited a bit or abridged a bit, but most of it. So there were quite a lot of speeches, which isn't ideal, I think, for graphic novel. But I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was fun to see that story in a slightly different format. Next up was Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher, which was fulfilling the reindeer prompt of an author who used an initial in their name. So T. Kingfisher worked for that one. I should have said The Importance of Being Earnest was also a Hercules prompt for an adaptation of a play. So that helped me out with that. Yes, T. Kingfisher, I have had a rocky road with this author. I loved Digger, her graphic novel series, which she published under the name of Ursula Vernon. And I have tried a couple of T. Kingfisher books, and I mean, not a massive fan. And Paladin's Grace, it didn't really work for me that well. It's about a paladin, Stephen, whose god dies, and so he is left a bit bereft, he and his fellow paladins of the Saint of Steel, I think. Anyway, and they join another order, the Order of the Rat. And yeah, he meets a young woman who is a perfumer, and they get embroiled in an assassination attempt and some political intrigue. And then there's also someone running around cutting people's heads off in the city. But it's very romance forward. There was not a huge amount of plot in the book, and it was pretty much all the romance all the time. And it was very tedious, because both of them spent basically the entire book going, oh, I'm really attracted to this other person, but it's impossible that they would be attracted to me because of whatever reasons of lack of self-worth or whatever. And it just went on for far too long, with them just, each of them in turn, thinking about what had happened in the previous chapter that we'd seen from the other one's point of view, and going, oh, well, I really, really like this person, but they couldn't possibly like me. And I was just very bored of it by the end. I loved all the other characters, though. The Bishop of the Rat Order was fantastic. The other paladins were fantastic. I loved Grace, the young woman's friend. All of the other characters were great. So I probably am going to carry on with the series, because the other two books in the series focus on some of the peripheral characters, which I've really grown to love. So I'm hoping that the romances on those will be less annoying. I hope. I can but hope. So I am going to carry on and give it a try. Also because the through line of the killer who's cutting off people's heads is definitely unresolved. So that might be quite interesting. 4.5 stars I gave Importance of Being Earnest. Sorry, this is a bit all over the place already. And Paladin's Grace, 2.5. Yeah, 2.5 wasn't great. Did fulfill one of the reindeer prompts though, but nothing for Herkyard. After that, I went with Dance Upon the Air by Nora Roberts. I have been reading a lot of Nora Roberts recently, and I think I need to stop because it's getting quite repetitive. But Dance Upon the Air was very handy, because in Herkyard you have to become the avatar by picking books which have the elements in the titles. So Air was one I needed. So when I saw that Nora Roberts had a trilogy which was Dance Upon the Air, Heaven and Earth, and Face the Fire, I thought, oh, that will finish off all of the avatar prompts that I haven't done, because I've done water. So I am going to plough my way through the rest of the series. But yeah, it's getting a bit much now. This is the first in the Three Sisters Island series, which, much like The Lost Brides and the Keys trilogy, has a young woman who gets a magical quest, and there's something to do with a mysterious big house, and it's getting a bit much. This one, I did like the character of Nell, who arrives on the island. She's fleeing an abusive relationship and falls in love with the sheriff on the island. But much like in the Keys trilogy, the romance was just terrible, because even though Zach, the sheriff, knew that Nell was coming out of a really abusive, violent relationship where she actually faked her own death to escape the guy, he still bullied her and, came on to her more than she wanted him to. And I was just, it's getting a bit much. I liked the other characters, like with Paladin's Grace. I wasn't a massive fan of this book so much, but I liked Mia and Ripley, who are the other two women protagonists, so we'll follow their stories in the other books. So I was invested in the idea of carrying on with it. But yeah, it's getting a bit much now, and I think once I finish this series, I'm going to have to give Nora Roberts a miss for a while. I did give this one 3 stars. The Island of Eternal Love by Dana Javiano is a weird one. In terms of the reindeer prompt, there were pairings of physical, audio, or ebook and other things, and I picked the physical paired with translated. This was also not a translated, because it's translated from Spanish, and I already have a Spanish translation on my Herkyard translation square, but Hispanic heritage, because it's about Cuba, and BIPOC author because the author is Cuban. This one was a weird one. It taught me some interesting things about Cuba, because I hadn't realized that Cuban heritage is a mixture, in fact, of Hispanic, African, and Chinese. And it follows several different strands of historical generations of a family from those different places, and weaves it all together into a narrative which then connects with the present day protagonist who lives in Miami and is wanting to learn more about her Cuban heritage. And she meets an old woman in a bar and then revisits her again and again to find out more about the story. It was a bit weird. I wasn't overly keen on the supernatural aspects. There's a ghost house that keeps appearing, and several of the people see strange creatures or have visions. And I wasn't necessarily expecting that in the book. And I don't know, I'm not a magical realism fan. I like fantasy, but this felt more like magical realism. I know it's a weird distinction, but I wasn't so keen. Some of it was pretty grim. A lot of the things that happened to the female characters in the historical sections of the story were pretty grim. And I am getting a bit tired of that in books. But it all came together okay. I wasn't massively a fan of the big twist at the end. Felt a bit cliche, felt a bit eye-rolly. But there were a lot of aspects about the weaving together of the stories which I did enjoy, and it was very cleverly constructed, at least. What did I give it? I gave it 3 stars, so I wasn't a massive fan. But I read it, and I did enjoy it overall. It's very well written, just not necessarily my kind of book, which helped on the reindeer front because one of the bonus prompts for the reindeer readathon was to pick a book that you wouldn't normally go for, and this definitely fit into that. Next up, I carried on my current trend of reading middle grade fantasy comic books, and I read the first 10 installments of the Wormworld saga by Daniel Lieske. And this helped me out because for Herkied, I needed another translated book. And as I said, I couldn't use The Island of Eternal Love because I've already used Spanish, and this was translated from German. So I've used it for that. And I also used it for disability because the boy protagonist, Jonas, has a panic disorder related to fear of fire. And it very much affects his ability to do things because he has flashbacks and panic attacks whenever he comes into contact unexpectedly with naked flames, which does happen. But this is a portal fantasy. He is visiting his grandmother for the holidays, and he finds a painting in the attic which opens up a portal to another realm. And it turns out that he is prophesied to be the savior of the realm because he's invulnerable when he's there, so he cannot be harmed. But because he has this irrational panic when fire is mentioned, and when he comes across it, and the bad guy in it is a god of fire, it causes him problems because even though he's invulnerable, he's still frightened of the fire. It was quite fun. Some of the art was really beautiful, especially in the double page spreads. There's only 11 installments out, and the story is very much not finished. I don't think I'm necessarily going to be following along and getting them as they come out. I enjoyed the ones I read. I thought the world building was really interesting. I thought Jonas was an interesting character. There were a lot of good other characters in there. I thought the politics of the world was interesting, and I was, reasonably invested in where the story might go. But as I said, there's only one more installment out at the moment, and yeah, so I read the 10 and enjoyed them. 4 stars overall. Next up on the audio front, I started listening to A Castle in the Clouds by Kirsten Gier, that's right. Which is another German author translated. This is about a young woman who's interning at a fancy hotel in the mountains, and various shenanigans go on. It's a bit quirky. and I wasn't overly keen on the protagonist. I didn't like her. And the audiobook narrator, I mean, this is definitely an issue with me rather than with the book, but she read the whole thing in a slightly German accent, and all of the other different characters had different accents, and it got a bit accent heavy. Um, which again, I mean, that's not an issue for the book because it was completely in keeping with the characters. I don't know, it got a bit much for me, and I wasn't really invested. I didn't really like the main character, and I didn't really care about what was happening in the story, unfortunately. So this one was a DNF. Next up was Loon Point by Carrie Classen, which is my second ever NetGalley arc, and I definitely lucked out again. I'm doing well on the NetGalley arcs. This one I'm using for the new release for Herkyard for January, and also 2026 publication as well, because it will be published in 2026, even though I've read it in December. And the reindeer prompt was a bit of a weird one. It was the digits of the page numbers adding up to more than 12. And this had 239 pages. So that's 9 plus 3 plus 2, which does add up to more than 12. Anyway, I don't know what I was expecting from this book. I must have read the blurb when I picked it from NetGalley, but it was a long time ago, so I don't really remember. And I was expecting a thriller for some reason. I don't know why. And this is a very, very quiet story, I have to say, which turned out to be useful because I was also doing the Lightfall challenge for Magical Readathon, which has 8 prompts, and you can apply more than one prompt to each book that you read between the dates of the 15th and the 21st of December. And I managed to fit 7 prompts into this book. Let's see if I can remember them. It was blue cover and white cover. Winter setting, which while it does take place over the course of an entire year, the inciting incident starts in a snowstorm. So I'm taking it. Cozy, because it was definitely cozier than I expected. Standalone. New release. And you're always going to forget one. Oh, and 4-star plus rating. I don't know whether that was 4-star plus rating on Goodreads or something, or me giving it a 4+ star rating. I can't remember, but it fit both because I gave it 4 stars because I really enjoyed it. It's about a woman called Nori who's in her 40s, and I do like a protagonist in their 40s. I always appreciate that. Who runs a camp resort, is kind of log cabins resort in I want to say rural Minnesota, and there's an 8-year-old girl who moves into a trailer down the road with her mother, and the mother is struggling with drug addiction and disappears, and the heat goes out in the trailer, and so the little girl tramps through the snow with a dog that she finds along the way to the resort, and Nori takes her in. And then there's an old man called Wendell who lives in a house in the nearby town, and his house collapses, and he ends up staying at the resort as well, while they're figuring out where he's going to go. And they learn to love each other, and they forge deep familial connections. So found family vibes strong. There's also a romance between Nori and a local fireman, which was really sweet and lovely. Yeah, I mean, there were some heavy themes because what happens with the little girl's mother is pretty dark. But overall, it was a very heartwarming, cozy story, and I really enjoyed it. It was maybe a little bit repetitive in places because it had alternate chapters with each of them, and then something would happen, and then we'd get each of their responses to it. And various things to do with the little girl's mother happened over and over again. But then that was kind of in keeping because she would come back and she would go, oh, I'm going to do better. And then she would fall off the wagon again. So it was very realistic. It was maybe a little bit neatly tied up at the end, but I wasn't mad about that. I gave it 4 stars, really enjoyed it. Next up was The Marble Collector by Cecilia Ahern. I picked up various Cecilia Ahern books over the course of this year from the local free station book exchange and charity shops around where I live. And I've liked some of them, not liked some of them. And this, unfortunately, I thought was going to be one of the ones that I would really like, and then I didn't. I had a major problem with the protagonist who was introduced. She's a lifeguard in a nursing home, and she was introduced in a scene in which one of the nursing home residents had a heart attack in the swimming pool, and the main character's only response to this was disappointment that she didn't get to pull the emergency cord. So, not very sympathetic as a protagonist. There's also a historical timeline of her father growing up in Ireland, and that was grim, very unpleasant, very distressing. And I just thought, I'm sure that there would be a beautiful way in which they understand each other better, and the protagonist's daughter comes to a better understanding of how to be a human, maybe, through her father's marble collection, which I was a little bit interested in, because I used to like marbles when I was a kid. I had a marble collection. But I wasn't that keen. I didn't want to slog through the very grim Irish childhood, and I really wasn't interested in the present day protagonist. I've even forgotten her name. What was her name? No, I didn't even write it in my notes. Sabrina. No, wasn't interested. So unfortunately, DNF. Next up was The Forgotten Tower by Lulu Taylor, which gave me my something from the title on the cover. So it does have a tower on the cover, and 500 plus pages for the Reindeer Readathon. Lulu Taylor is another one that I've picked up this year, a few of from charity shops and the Station Free Book Exchange. And again, hit and miss. She has a tendency to lean into domestic violence and abuse against women and also children in this one. And sometimes it goes a bit far for me. It didn't tip over into too far in this one. And otherwise it has a very familiar structure for me for a book with a young woman who goes to live in a castle and discovers things about the past, which then have repercussions for her in the present. I liked the protagonist, Georgie, although I did find her attitude to things at the beginning a little bit wearing. She was very much a people pleaser, which is understandable given the background that we find out about her and her sister and what happened to them when they were kids. But it did get a little bit wearing. But she found her strength, she found her power, and she worked hard to help her sister and improve her own situation and sort out the issues in her relationship and the trauma that she suffered. It wasn't presented as an easy fix. She had to do a lot of work and she had to go through quite a lot to get there. We also had the story of the children who lived in the castle during the Second World War and what will happen with them. Some of the reveals were a bit ridiculous, and the eventual ultimate twist was kind of just sort of tacked on in the end with like an aftermath chapter of, and this explains what had happened earlier in the book. So it wasn't a wholly satisfying conclusion, but overall, I found it quite compelling. I read it very quickly. It's not a difficult read. And mostly enjoyed it. 3.5 stars for The Forgotten Tower. And last but not least, I listened to the second in the Three Sisters Island series, Heaven and Earth by Nora Roberts, which fulfilled the secret prompt for December for Hurt Kid, which was to read a book which has exactly the same title as at least one other book, which this one does. Heaven and Earth is a fairly common title. And also, yes, it was the Become the Avatar gave me Earth in the title, which was quite handy. And this follows Ripley Todd, who is the deputy sheriff. She is the sister of the sheriff from the first book. And so the sister-in-law of the protagonist of the first book by the time this one comes about. And she has rejected her magic. And so we follow her on her journey to connect back to her magic power and also have a romance with a paranormal investigating scholar guy who turns up on the island to investigate things. It was fine. I like Ripley. Ripley was a good character. Was quite brash, but very strong, quite forthright. I liked the romance better because she was a much stronger female character. So, and the guy was, I mean, not weaker, but softer, I would say, slightly softer. So they matched quite well, and there wasn't so much of the problematic surprise kisses or bullying that seems to go on in the rest of the Nora Roberts books I've read this year. Yeah, I liked the way the supernatural element came back into it and the way the threat was built upon from the first book. I'm less invested now in finishing the series, but I've only got one more to go, and they're not difficult books to listen to. I don't mind having them on in the background while I'm doing other stuff. The third one does obviously conclude the story and follows Mia, and I have really enjoyed Mia as a character in the other two, so I probably will get round to it, although it's not top of my list. Would finish off the Avatar for me for her kid, which would be very handy. Was it a reindeer book? Yes, reindeer, no eyes on the cover, so that was fine. Yeah, so I gave it 3 stars, like the first one. And that about wraps it up. I didn't get through very many books, as I said, but it was quite nice to just be quite relaxed about my reading. And we have come to the end of 2025 and reading in 2025. I don't really have any goals for 2026, I don't think. Very much going with the flow. I'm signed up to ridiculous number of challenges. I'm going to do Magical Readathon again, definitely. I'm still working my way through Herkid, the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. I'll probably sign up for Herkid 3.0, assuming that happens. I don't think I'd probably do the reindeer one again or the Dungeons and Book Dragons one again, but I have signed up for TBR Spin with Sarah from Freshly Read Books, and I'm quite looking forward to that. So lots of reading still in the new year, probably carrying on with the same structure as I have done this year with the YouTube, with I do the TBR video at the end of the month, the wrap up of the previous month, reviews revisited, where I pick a book and reread it and then compare my thoughts to my original review, and Read It or Yeet It, where the spinner wheel picks 3 of my least appealing books, and I give them 50 pages to hook me, and then either carry on reading them or Stanley yeets them off camera. If you are a regular viewer, or if you've caught a few of my videos, do let me know in the comments what you think of the channel. Now that I've done most of a year, I started in April, May, so I've been doing it for a while now. And if you like the format and the cycle of the videos that I've done, and if there's anything you'd like to see on the channel, or if you have any comments on how I might be able to improve my videos, I would love to hear about it. Also, let me know how you've got on with your reading in 2025, and if you have any particular goals for your reading in 2026. And I hope you've had a fantastic reading year, and a happy new year for 2026. And I will see you again in another video very soon. Bye for now.